Good morning, this is Nellie's Farm. It is a Saturday, October 4th, 2025. Well, I hope this video works out because so many I try to do, especially about paranormal things, the sound gets messed up and I have to do them again or I just give up. So this is one of my Halloween stories, true story. I promised you guys true horror stories because I've had so many paranormal things happen to me most of my life. And this is another big one. If you hadn't heard, I lived next to a serial killer years ago, and I did that for my last Halloween horror true story, if you want to check out that video. Okay, this one was many years ago. As a matter of fact, over 30 years ago, about 31 years ago, guys. And that's Isabel. Isabel says, good morning. Okay. We moved in with our baby, my ex-partner and I, to a kind of a rural farmhouse on the outskirts of a pretty big city on the border of Michigan and Ohio. Hush up. Every time I come out here too, Freya starts barking over there. We moved in the farmhouse out of an apartment because we had a new baby and we needed space. And this farmhouse was really old, but even though we rented it, we wanted to fix it up a bit. We planned on living there years, hoping to buy it maybe because it had a few acres too. And it was a few miles out of town. It was perfect, really, you know. The first time we saw it and we rented it, the landlord, we noticed he's kind of creepy. This was a guy in his 50s, and he had a little 3-year-old girl with him. And the little girl looked extremely scared and intimidated. We noticed, almost like, I got this feeling that little girl didn't belong to him. I can't prove it or whatever, but I know a scared child when I see one, and she was scared, and he never let go of her arm once. So we rented this farmhouse, and we moved in. We started hanging some wallpaper and stuff like that, you know. Now, my partner had his own business, and he was gone, like, a lot, like, all the time. So we did notice there was a lot of junk and garbage left by the other people, by the way, and there was a lot of work to do. So in the basement, there was all kinds of creepy stuff. It was filled. It's like they threw a lot of stuff down there. But, oh Lord, in the back of the basement, there was a lot of creepy religious statues. I thought, oh, they must be a Catholic or something because they kind of pertain to that, you know. But there was also, this is a warning on this video, by the way. It's not really for children. There was strange pornography down there. Now, this is the days where there wasn't, you know, internet yet. And the materials, the magazines, it was freaky stuff. I'm just going to leave it at that. Really freaky stuff. And which I thought was really strange if they were religious, right? There was a lot of weird stuff that we couldn't explain, so my partner did a lot of the basement stuff because it was quite a bit, and I had just had the baby, and hauled it out with his work truck, you know, a lot of that garbage and weird crap. But he would bring stuff up and show me, like, hey, there's weird stuff down there. It was a really bad, moldy basement in horrible shape, by the way. Almost like a really big, like, 3-room cellar. It was so nasty. But yet there was a recliner down there that you could tell was being used recently because there was, like, soda cans, pop cans and stuff, you know, that weren't that old next to it. And all kinds of just, you know, effects next to that recliner. Someone had been sitting down there regularly, even though that basement was, it was sickening. You couldn't even breathe down there hardly. So there was also something else weird, an unfinished concrete block wall. And you could see that it didn't go to the outer wall. There was a space between it. But not just that, there was also the material someone was using to build that. There was still the concrete, even those little scraper things, the tools you use. It was just sitting there next to the wall, like they didn't get to finish. It was pretty obvious. And they had recently done it, very recently, like right before we moved in. That was obvious too. So we're like, well, that's pretty strange, you know. We just left it. And there was a good sized space, like a good 2 feet between that and the outer wall. Like they were trying to hide something. So that freaked me out. But anyway, I talked to the neighbors, which were like about a block away. This one in particular I talked to regularly, and when I first moved there, and he says that people had the creeps from them, and they even, when they left, they took their tires that were out there for whatever they use them for. I use them to put flowers in and grow things around here. Here's a tomato plant in a tire doing pretty well, as you can see. But they also took their burn barrel. And my neighbor said it was a really rusty old burn barrel. Now, why in the heck would they take something like that? And then it wasn't because they were cleaning the place, you know. Because they left all the other garbage and stuff. I thought that was really strange. So the neighbors kept their distance from these people. For a reason. Now, on this property, there was also an old barn. Not a big barn, medium size. My partner went up in the loft, and he found a lot of small children's clothes up there and on some hay. Some people had been laying up there, an ashtray with a lot of cigarette butts, and that setup looked pretty bizarre. Pretty creepy. Like, what's been going on up there? So, yeah, that was another red flag. So we started noticing something, like on weekends we'd go out to eat or something, and I didn't leave the house that often. But when we did, when he would take me out, we'd come home and see that someone had been in the house. I didn't know it for a little while, but my partner told me that he had set up he suspected it too, he set up these little tripwires, tiny thin threads, I can't remember what he used, in doorways, and he didn't tell me this now at first, he could see exactly where they were going when they came in to the house. They were going straight to the basement, and he set them up all over to see what they were doing. Pretty smart, huh? So, this kept happening. It's nothing we could really prove or pin down except that they were going to the basement. So, in our opinion, they were going to the basement, and nothing was touched, by the way, down there, to check that wall, that concrete wall. So, we were more convinced than ever that something was hiding behind that wall, and they didn't get to finish the wall. It didn't go all the way to the top. It was maybe a foot and a half from the top. We couldn't see over it. And we think that they kept going to check on the wall to see if we had done anything to it or anything, which we hadn't. It was with thick concrete blocks. So anyway, after this, the activity, the weird shit started ramping up. Really ramping up. At one point, that door that they came through, which was the back door, we didn't use the front at all. Kind of like the side door, actually. The wood frame, which was very thin, by the way, that held the glass for that door, was actually removed after my partner did some stuff to try to ensure they wouldn't get in. They removed the wood that held the glass in. It was brand new, and they didn't even try to hide it. And I didn't even notice it. He noticed it. It was freaky. They literally took the glass pane out of that side door, which was our main entrance, and they replaced it after they had, they went through a lot of trouble. They replaced it after they were in there. I mean, talk about bizarre. We knew there was a really good reason they were going in there. We also started getting weird phone calls. We changed our number several times, and guess what? Immediately we would get those calls again. And back then, it was you either decide whether your number's listed or unlisted. There was no Google and all that. You can pretty much find someone's number really easy nowadays. Back then, that wasn't the case. If your number was unlisted, which ours were, you couldn't find their new number. Well, guess what? Right afterwards, they'd call again. And usually they just sit there and breathe. I honestly don't remember. I think they said something one time to me. I don't remember what it was. I think one time they said to check the mail or something. But anyway, at that point, I thought, well, they're just watching me, if they want me to come out and check the mail. Because at that point, I didn't even really want to leave the house when he was gone. I started feeling not safe, of course. We borrowed his brother's dog, which was like a pit bull mix at this point. We kept him there so he would alert us, which he did, He was real good at guarding. He knew his job was to guard myself and the baby, and he took it serious. And I believe that helped keep me safe also. Now, one day, this weirdo guy who was deranged and drunk and looked like something out of a horror movie pulled up in a rusty old van. That was scary in itself. I heard it pull in the driveway, and I just put my puppy out there. There was a screened-in porch at that entrance. That's the entrance I was telling you about. And I thought, oh my gosh, I had this feeling right off the bat that was him, that he's the one who used to live there. And my pup was running around out there. And he got back in his van as I was coming to that door because I was so scared for the puppy. And he tried to run the puppy over. I ran in front of the van, grabbed the puppy, ran back in the house, and he was laughing hysterically, this guy, and drunk. Ran in the house, locked that screen door and that main door I was telling you about. And I was shaking. I was so scared. I mean, I was there with my baby. And by the way, at that point, we didn't have his brother's dog yet at that point. And so he pounded on the door, but he didn't. He tried the doorknob. I could hear it. I was in the living room around the corner, and he didn't come in. He didn't break in, but I thought he was gonna. I was scared to death. So my partner left something for me to defend myself at that point. Yes, we had been calling the police because I'm sure you're thinking, why didn't she call the police? It was actually the sheriff out there, and the sheriff came out. I took him in the basement, and I showed him these meat hooks hanging from the ceiling. It looked like it was straight out of a horror film. And he said, well, that's probably for processing deer, But why would you do that in the house? Like strip a deer corpse and everything, when you could do it outside or in that barn, It just gave me, those hooks gave me the creeps, and there were so many of them in weird places in that cellar basement. And the police didn't really take me too serious. But they did say they'll try to drive by more. But, they were many miles away. This is a rural county. I was right over the state line. And the jurisdiction wasn't for the city that I was closest to. So, and he said to keep in contact with him, let him know if anything changes. So, we started being followed, especially my partner, because he's the one who was gone most of the time and driving. He started noticing cars following him. He felt intimidated by them. They were definitely watching him. Then comes the night I'll never forget. I was watching a movie in a love seat which reclined. I don't remember what it was, but I had my popcorn, and it was next to front window of the house. Now this house had pretty good sized front yard. I'm gonna say, I don't know, maybe maybe 15, 20 yards from the road to the actual front of the house. So there was a like this right here, like the grass to this fence. It was at least that. It was at night. My partner was sleeping upstairs. I was watching the movie. Yeah, it was about this length from the road where that fence is to about the house. It was probably could fit like 4 cars, 3 or 4 cars in that. I look up and there's headlights coming to my window in the grass, not the driveway. He pulls up, this guy, this big Mexican guy, but he had sunglasses on, but I could tell he was a Latino, and a little tiny Ford Escort. And if you're younger, you probably don't know what those old Ford Escorts look like. And he pulled up right next to the window. His window was rolled down, and he started laughing hysterically and looking at me. Now my window, the living room window, was not open. No, it was winter time. And but it was, I could still hear him. And he just was laughing at me, and then he made a signal with a gun with his fingers, with his hand. And then he peeled out. He drove off like a bat out of hell in that little Escort. I ran upstairs, woke up my partner, of course. That was just crazy. I don't know who this guy is. Never seen him in my life. It's so strange how these people are like, they don't have a mean face or anything. They just laugh hysterically. So that's the second person that I saw stalking us, okay? This is stuff that you can't really pinpoint, and if you call the police over and over, they're just going to get irritated with you. I mean, it's nothing they can really do unless I get hard information, but that's coming. I did get hard information. So, we started moving out, okay? You can't blame us for that. There was really, what you doing in there, Isabel? What you doing? Is that your little hiding spot? This is the old compost bin. But, so we started moving our stuff out. We had a lot of stuff in there, too. So we temporarily moved in with my Uncle Don, who was actually not an uncle. He was a friend of the family. This is a World War II decorated vet that was in his almost 80 years old by then, 70s. He was an older guy even in the war. We explained everything to him. He built a house around that state line road, but a different area, further west. Miles west. And he said, he's been there all his life, he said that there is well-known cults in that area along State Line Road, which is what I lived in, State Line Road. Some of my utilities were actually in Ohio and some in Michigan. And he said that there's always been satanic cults known in that area. People that are there a long time know about them, and nobody messes with them. He said nobody messes with them. They're extremely dangerous and lawless, and they get around the law, I guess. We're moving out and taking loads with that work truck, one by one. I believe we put the stuff in storage while we were staying with Uncle Don temporarily, and we also were calling the police still, the sheriff, and keeping him updated on this. When one night, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you this. This was before we decided to move, guys. A few times a week, we'd hear someone pulling in our driveway exactly 3:30 a.m. And I believe it was that van, because it sounded like the guy that came up in the van that time and tried to run over my pup. 3:30 a.m. And the vehicle would run, and I would be like, wake up, you know. They're back, they're in the driveway. And as soon as one of us would put our feet on the floor to get up and go to the window, that van would take off really quick. Every single time. They knew when we were about to get out of bed. And sometimes we'd lay there for like 10 minutes. But they didn't leave until, we put our feet on the floor to get up out of bed and go look. Now, there's plastic on the windows. This is an old farmhouse. To keep out the cold. This is Michigan, you know. It's cold up there. We couldn't really see out of that. We saw the headlights. every single time, we never got a clear view of the vehicle because of that. So we started thinking our house is bugged. And it wouldn't surprise me because they had been in there multiple times. And it was to the point where my partner would say, shh, when we were talking in the truck. Because he had a really good suspicion and even a little evidence that they had bugged our truck too. Now this is insane. And this is back when there wasn't even a lot of tech. 31 years ago? So fast forward again. Oh yeah, my Uncle Don, by the way, suggested putting two mirrors and a string, lowering the string down over that concrete wall that was in the basement with twine or something, and with 2 mirrors to see what's down there, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. I was afraid of what I was going to see. Whatever it was they were hiding, drugs or whatever, who knows? Bodies, bones, who knows? I don't know why they didn't take it with them, or they had time to build part of the wall. I don't know. But I didn't want to know what was there, because that also might implicate me and put me in danger more, but I didn't really think about that. I was just scared. I'm a lot more of a bold person nowadays. I look now. But anyway, one time towards the end, we came home. Now this was towards the end when we were starting to move out. We had a lot of crap, and truck by truckload we would take it. And we had a 55-gallon fish tank with Oscars in it that we'd had for a few years. Oscars get real big, and we loved them. Looking at the fish tank at night, sitting in the dining room, lit up. It gave me a lot of peace. I liked watching them. We'd hand feed them and everything. We came home and the top of the lid was up, and it appeared that the fish jumped out of the tank. And most of them, there was like 5, they were on the floor of the dining room dead. I don't know if someone got them. There wasn't a lot of water on the floor or anything. Or did the fish... Well, they had to have opened the lid. But that house was... I wouldn't say that there was a lot of paranormal activity in that house, but you could feel the oppression. You could feel the darkness. A lot of that I actually feel in this place too. But, so, yeah, we had those fish years, and they were dead on the ground. So, let's go back to when we're moving out. We had a load, and we were almost done. And he had been telling me he was being harassed while driving, when he's gone from home. And I was with him. I saw this for myself. It was at night. We're on a main road in town, in the big town, and 2 people in this rusty old car drive up, and this lady is halfway out of the car, and we're going like 40, and she's yelling something, and my partner is driving. He say, what? He can't hear her. She's in the passenger side of that car, and she's laughing hysterically like the other 2, and I honestly can't remember what she said, but it didn't make any sense when we finally understood what she said. I'm leaning up trying to hear her too. And then they tried to run us off the road. And we had a truck full of stuff in the back. And we swerved a few times. They literally tried to sideswipe us. Then they took off laughing. We got the license plate number. So we finally we got some kind of evidence, right? That we could tell the police so they don't think we're crazy. Because I think the police thought we were crazy. So, and we were leaving. They still harassed us. They knew we were leaving. They had to know we were leaving by then, right? We were almost done. We had a few more loads of our stuff. It wasn't good enough. They wanted to further intimidate us, I guess, and scare us. So I called the sheriff, finally, we're going to get to the bottom of this with the license plate number. Guess what? It took them forever to call me back. But they finally did. They called me at Uncle Don's. No cell phones back then. All landlines. And guess what? The sheriff on the phone one of the ones I'd been keeping in touch with, he told me there's no such license plate. And I know we saw it, right? I wrote it down even though I had a photographic memory back then. I wrote it down. I know we wrote it down right. He swears that there is no such license plate. And then it was like, dun, dun, dun. And I'm like, what am I dealing with here? What am I dealing with? It looked like a regular plate. It wasn't some homemade thing. Had the stickers and everything. And guess what? The police wouldn't take my calls after that. Sheriff, I should say. They would not take any of my calls. They wouldn't return my calls. So, Uncle Don said that they know about those things. The state line road satanic cults, and they stay clear of them. But why? Why? So what I think now was that these people were all in a cult, including the landlord, and I think that they had a falling out with my landlord, and he told them to move, and they tried to finish that wall, and they couldn't, and they were worried about something behind the wall. So they kept coming back to check it, and of course to intimidate us. So we moved out after we've been out a few months. We didn't, have anybody following us anymore or anything. They just wanted us out. But one night, I shouldn't have done this, okay? I drove back by. I was very curious. It was actually, I went at night, but I went during the day a few times too. And guess what? The tires were back where they originally had them, because you could see where they sat. And guess what? A rusty old burn barrel was back, and I could see where the burn barrel had been sitting for years. They brought the rusty old burn barrel back and put it where it used to be. Another time, the last time I drove by that I remember, this was like 31 years ago, guys, I saw a lady in the yard. Middle-aged lady, about the same as that guy that had pulled up in the van. And she was outside planting some flowers or something. She was working outside, and she looked right up at me, and she just smiled as I drove by. And that was that. So this is my true story. The cops did not want to touch this. They didn't want anything to do with this. What does that tell you? This is a true story. It really happened. So be careful. Be careful. I hope you enjoyed this. Nellie's Farm signing off. I'll have some more for you real soon throughout the month of October. Please hit the subscribe, like button and hit that bell. Hardly anybody does. Hardly anybody will hit that like button. Please do that for me. I'm unmonetized after 4 years. And share my videos out if you like this. I will have a lot more stories through the month of October. True stories, personal stories. Thanks for listening. Have a good weekend.